All right. What's going on, guys? Dr. Matt here, host of the Roadie Strength Podcast. Got another special guest on today, Colby King. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah, be fun today. So we got owner of Triad Performance and Nutrition. She specializes in current and former female athletes, and is a registered dietitian, and also a personal trainer.
And a trained chef.
Yeah. So a little bit of everything, which is a really cool combination of like three different spheres in the fitness world, but they all so closely relate to each other. So to have experience in all three of those, because for performance, for weight loss, for anything you're trying to do in the fitness world, you really need you need to have some sort of understanding of all three of those. So, and you have a very good understanding of all three of those, which is great. So we'll get into your background, and then a lot of questions about nutrition in general today, but I like to start these off with rapid fire questions. So first one, we got favorite coffee shop.
So we recently moved to the area, so we've been trying to find some new ones, but Josephine's in Smithfield is kind of our go-to right now.
Awesome.
Brewology would be another one. I don't know if you've been there.
Nice. I've been to Brewology. I haven't been to Josephine's yet. Actually, I haven't heard of it, but I'm definitely willing to check it out. I love coffee, so.
Yeah, and they were like decked out to the nines for Christmas, which it just makes me so happy.
Brewology is a repeat answer on the podcast.
That's so
too.
funny.
They do like at night they turn into a bar too, so that's a cool spot.
Yeah.
Next question, we got favorite go-to breakfast.
So recently, it's been doing some soft scrambled eggs, because overcooked scrambled eggs is
no good.
They're like dry and gummy and disgusting.
So how do you soft scramble?
So like right when it's starting to not be runny anymore, you turn the heat off.
Gotcha.
So they don't overcook, because you keep them in the pan for another second or two while you grab your plate, grab your fork, whatever. So then they end up overcooking. Yeah. So you turn it off like a little bit before they're actually done, and then they're like perfect.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you go English muffin, toast, fruit.
Yeah. So usually English muffin or toast, and then some sort of fruit in there, but it's tough this time of year, so it's been a little bit more like fruit cups and frozen fruit and
not as much available. You get the grocery store stuff, but nothing super fresh.
Yeah.
Favorite recent book?
Anything Colleen Hoover has been like the it thing in the past year. She's been all over TikTok too. Everyone is just like obsessed with her, which is funny because her books are like old. I don't want to say old, but they were like mid-2000s.
Interesting.
And then TikTok picked them up and it like blew up again. Really? So I've read most of them, but I recently started rereading them. So that's been kind of like my go-to. Anything that.
What's her style of like, is it fiction, nonfiction?
It's fiction, but it's more like romancy.
Cool. Okay.
Storylines, cool twists.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Favorite recent podcast?
So my mom actually told me about this one recently. So Maria Menounos does a lot of different things. She podcasts a bunch of different ways. But one of them specifically she started recently, I think with her husband, is called Heal Squad.
Okay.
And it's a lot about, she has other professionals from the healing industry, whether it's people like us or life coaches, acupuncturists, purpose coaches, like anyone in the healing industry. And it's just really cool. Like she had someone on the other day that was talking about really like high level sympathetic nervous system responses for stress and techniques. And it was just, it's a lot of learning. So it's a podcast for like keeping your brain on.
Totally. Very cool. I haven't heard that name yet, but that's definitely one I'll check out too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
A lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. Especially it sounds similar to like, I'll listen to like and I don't know what your take on this is, like the Andy Huberman podcast and like different podcasts similar to that, but it sounds kind of similar where like there's a lot of science and research in there, but focused on like injuries, rehab, healing, like that, which is cool. So it sounds up my alley. So check
definitely.
that out.
And a lot more like those, like Huberman and all of that is more focused on like outside healing, like actual healing of the body, where a lot of what she talks about and the guests she has on it's like the inside healing,
like stress response or trauma. Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah, because we have to, as we know, we have to heal all facets, not just inside or outside.
Totally. Very cool. Next one, we got favorite Instagram accounts.
There's so many. Dr. John Rusin is one of my absolute favorites. So
he's awesome. I like him too.
He's like the pain or the anti-pain performance specialist.
Yep.
And he's always posting like amazing exercises that just like outside of the box thinking.
Yeah, he's good.
Love him, all of his content. Another one that's more like mental health focused. It's called Lemons by Tay. So I don't know if you were ever a Twilight fan back in the day.
not a huge one, but
You know who Taylor Lautner is though? So he was the werewolf.
what was his actor name?
Jacob.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's actually his wife. And,
Okay.
And him so it's Tay and Tay. So her name is also Taylor. So
Gotcha. Okay.
she used to be a psychiatric nurse.
Wow.
In COVID. So
Okay.
they started this, they have a whole foundation now. So it's that herself is doing, it's a lot about like mental health and
Yeah.
all of that good stuff. So they post a lot of like helpful tools, information, but motivational stuff too, which is really nice.
Awesome. That sounds like a great account. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's relatively new. They also have a podcast now too. I think it's called The Squeeze.
Okay.
So everything they do is kind of like lemon focused.
Yeah, that's cool. When life gives you lemons.
Yeah,
I
that's
like it.
exactly why. Yep. So you could put that on the podcast answer too.
Yeah, good stuff. And then you had one more you liked, Rhode Island Food Fights.
Yeah,
they're good.
Yeah,
they're good.
That's just like our local amazingness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Are they the same account that does like it's like taco month? Here's all these places like giving taco deals.
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah,
like
it's
that.
like
Yeah,
themed, and they do
Right.
like competitions too, like best. That's why it's called Food Fight. Like,
Right, right.
I think they're doing best donut right now in Rhode Island.
Are they really?
Yeah.
When does
Yeah.
that end? February?
I think the end of this month. Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to check that out. I feel like I know who's gonna win that one. I think PBD Donuts
I was just gonna say.
it has held the crown for that for a while.
Yeah, it's
but
gonna be
we'll
that
see.
or Need.
Need. Yeah, they're the top two for sure. They go head and head.
They do.
Yeah, that's cool. Next question we got: somewhere you've traveled recently.
So we didn't do a ton of traveling this past year because finances and getting married and all of that fun stuff.
Yep.
But we did travel to get married. So we were up in Vermont.
Nice.
And then we kind of stayed there and did like a mini moon. So we stayed there
Nice.
for like a little bit of a shortened week just to stay and breathe and
Yeah.
enjoy everything that was happening. But we actually get to travel this year for our actual honeymoon. So we're going to Italy in
Nice.
like May, June.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm stoked. It's been on my list forever.
Where are you going to Italy? Do you have
Kind of all of it.
Nice. Just travel the country. Very
Yeah.
cool.
So we'll be there for I think it's like 16 days,
Nice.
and we're going like south up through the middle and then ending up north. So we're trying to see
Very
like kind of
cool.
a big chunk of everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's gonna be an undertaking, but
I don't know if we talked about this already, but I also got married in August
Okay,
of
yeah.
this past year, and we went to Italy afterwards for the honeymoon.
nice.
So we had a great time. So
Where did you guys go?
We went mostly around Amalfi Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We did a little bit of bouncing around. Like we went to Rome,
Nice.
Sorrento,
Mm-hmm.
and then we actually ended up going to Santorini, Greece for a little bit too. So,
So
yeah.
you stayed down south.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. And it was late summer, early fall, like first week of September. So it was pretty warm. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, but not as busy as like middle of the summer peak season, which is nice.
Yeah, there's one section in Sorrento. In Greece. What was it called? I just said it.
Santorini.
Santorini. Thank you. That's like really known for having like this like really beautiful sunset over this one section of it where there's just like a parade of people and I think this is just like all the time.
Yeah.
So for the most part we didn't have too many crazy crowds, but like we knew what we were getting into with that. We're like,
Yep.
all right, let's go into
Get
like
in
the
line.
parade of people and watch
Yep.
the sunset, which was kind of a wild experience. But other than that, there wasn't too many crowds, which was nice.
Nice.
Yeah, which was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
And at least you knew that going into it. I think
Yeah.
it would have sucked a lot more if you
oh
didn't
my
know.
god! If you didn't know what you were gonna get into, like, oh, let's go see the sunset,
Yeah, it's
and
gonna
it
be
was
romantic.
and it was insane. It was like if you've been to like a sporting event, like a Patriots game or something like that, and like the crowd lets out, like, and there's
Oh,
people
no.
packed that
Yeah,
close.
you
Like
can't
that's
move.
that's how packed it is.
Oh my goodness.
For a sunset.
That's crazy.
It's nuts, yeah. But yeah, if you know that going into it, you're like, all right, this is gonna be kind of interesting, kind of cool, and you get the beautiful sunset. Like
Yep.
it's worth it. But
That's so
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it was wild.
Fight to the death for sunset pics.
literally. All right, I'm gonna go next question. Favorite shoe or sneaker?
The Vivo Barefoots are
Nice.
they're my go-to. Anything lifting based because it's wide toe box, super good contact with the floor. So that's anything lifting, anything kind of like outside of lifting, any like hiking, running, walking. I actually want more support.
Sure.
So Asics, Sauconys are also great. But more like hiking, trail running are the Solomons. Those are my go-to.
Nice. You do Solomon makes good like ski snowboard equipment too.
They do. Yep.
The Vivo Barefoot, I just ordered a pair of those.
Nice.
I put them on. I bought a size a little bit too big.
Yeah.
Their size has screwed me up a little bit because I'm pretty much always a 10.5, and I'm like,
And you went 11.
Do I go up or down? And I went 11, and I'm like, I know there's supposed to be more room for my toes, but there is a lot of space here.
Yeah.
So I sent them back. I'm getting a size 10, and I'm just like crossing my fingers. I'm like, please don't be too small. Please don't be too small.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It takes a little bit to get used to,
Yeah.
too. Like, even if you find, like, the 10s do fit appropriately, they're still going to feel kind of funky.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to being squished.
Totally.
All of our sneakers.
I've heard from too many people that they love the Vivos, so I'm like, all right, time to get a pair.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, like, the whole barefoot, like, using the muscles of the feet, because just because like it's like almost like if you break your arm and you put a brace on your arm and all of a sudden you're not using any of those muscles, your arm gets weak. It's the same thing like with your foot. You're like almost like putting a brace on your foot. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the idea behind it, and a lot of people have said they're good. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely,
a great shoe.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, nice. Next question we got: what do you like to do for general fitness or workouts?
Kind of a mix.
Cool.
And I think we'll talk about this kind of in a little bit, but more like an intuitive exercise approach where I did one thing for way too long.
Sure.
Playing soccer and pretty much only soccer for 14 plus years.
Nice.
Really learned that my body doesn't like doing that. And I don't think anybody's body does.
Fair.
So I really like to mix it up now. Like I have a decent structure with lifts. I come from a very like functional fitness approach, not just your traditional like bodybuilding routine, but moving in different directions, getting different equipment involved, staying functional for as long as possible. Like I am a firm believer that someone shouldn't be bench pressing 500 pounds if they can't put their arms over their head.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it blows my mind, but a lot of people think like that.
Yeah.
So very like functional approach.
Nice.
But then like the flip side of things, I also love doing like yoga and Pilates and more like the restorative type of stuff too. So
awesome.
yeah.
That's a good mix. I like that.
Yeah.
I'm
Anything outside
similar.
too. Especially when it's like nice out. I'll do yoga outside and it's just,
nice.
You can't beat it.
No.
It's just so nice.
Last rapid fire question here. We got favorite current pump up or gym song.
Anything rock metal.
Nice.
Like I think I put on there the Falling in Reverse, the Watch the World Burn is what it's called.
Love it.
Super positive.
Hey, that's good. Yeah. Sometimes you need that fire when you're getting after like a heavy set or getting intense. Like you need something angry.
Yeah, it's really funny too when it like you put your workout playlist on and like something like that pops up first and you're like in the middle of your warm up.
Yeah, you're like not yet. or yeah, it gets you amped up already. Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, you're like I don't need to be this pumped up for my warm up, but thank you.
Sure. All right, now I'm getting into it. Okay, I can see that. That's funny.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into your backstory a little bit, kind of how you got into nutrition, and then we'll kind of flow into the basically how you started Triad Performance.
So it's kind of a progression of a story, I guess you could say.
Cool.
I grew up really in the kitchen with my mom, and she was always, still is, a big proponent of healthy cooking and understanding like what we're putting in our bodies and reading labels and just like more health conscious forward thinking. But I remember vividly like getting home from school or getting home from practice and like sitting up on the kitchen counter while she made dinner and just like, oh, what is that? What are you doing? How are you doing that? So I found a love for food and cooking pretty early on. But when you get to like junior year of high school and your guidance counselor is like, well, what do you want to do for the rest of your life type of question? I originally thought, well, something in the food industry makes sense. And I was obsessed with Food Network and Chopped and just all of those amazing shows, and like Chopped specifically because it taught me that everything had so many different possibilities and you could do different textures and flavors, and they all came from a box that like creativity was just like the main focal point, and I thought that was fascinating. But I knew that doing something like being a chef or working in restaurants was not the long-term goal.
Sure.
Because that is just, it's not healthy. You're working nights, weekends, holidays, terrible
Tough career.
environment.
Yeah.
I did it for like a little over 5 years,
Wow.
a couple different restaurants, just to get the experience, because you
Yeah.
need that too. But like I would barely drink water. You maybe had like one meal.
Sure.
Never went to the bathroom. Like it was just like not
nonstop.
not sustainable. So I was like, okay, cool. I learned what I learned, but this is not it.
Yeah.
So
not to mention too, I feel like maybe not the restaurants you were at, or maybe they were. A lot of the culture in restaurants is like not
hostile.
not very health focused either.
No,
like
no.
like some places like drugs and like other stuff. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, slamming alcohol.
Yeah,
And yeah, totally not healthy from any aspect, and not. And this is like a totally loaded topic too, but like also not as a female either.
Sure.
Like
sure.
just like no respect and
Totally.
sexual harassment and like you name it.
I'm listening to a book right now. I think Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential.
Nice.
Ever heard of that one?
Yep.
Oh my God, it's the stories in that book are insane.
Yeah.
And obviously he's like a world class like chef. He's seen a lot of things, but I'm like, holy, how is this real?
Yeah. People don't realize it. Yeah, behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, things get spicy.
Yeah.
And not in a good way.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, understanding all of that, and then I found that I knew I didn't want to go like super far away for school. So Johnson and Wales in Providence is obviously
Nice.
local, but they had a program that was not just food focused and not just nutrition focused either, because I think Framingham State was another one that was on my list, and they had a program that was just dietetics. So just nutrition, just clinical focus. They like barely talked about food.
Yeah.
I was like, that just doesn't really make sense, right?
Right.
So JWU had its culinary nutrition, and now it's a little bit different. But when I went, it was our first 2 years were strictly culinary arts. So you could pretty much like bank an associate's and then leave if you wanted to just keep that.
Sure.
Just strict culinary arts for the people that wanted to stay food service. So being in a lab for like 6 hours in the professional kitchens, learning cuisines, baking, flavors, like everything, super fun. But you learn the food first, and then you had to get accepted into the nutrition program for the last 2 years, because that was kind of like higher level education.
It's a good way to do it.
Yep. So then that was more, you'd talk more nutrition, more medical nutrition therapy, all of that fun stuff. So I like swear by that. It was an amazing experience to have kind of both sides of the coin. But then again, I realized that I wanted to do more with that.
Sure.
It's like, okay, like what else can I do with this? Because I didn't want to just be like a health coach or a wellness coach. I wanted to
Sure.
be higher level thinking. So to become a dietitian, you have to have a degree. You have to do a dietetic internship, which is 1,200 hours of supervised practice. This whole matching system, it's like craziness. So I ended up getting matched to Yale down in New Haven.
Cool.
So I was down there for a year in their hospital, which was massive. It makes Rhode Island Hospital look like a baby hospital.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. So finish that, then you have to sit for the board exam, get all that stuff done, and then you're good.
So 1,200 hours. I'm having trouble trying to like
It's like
picture that.
10 months full time, but we were there
Like
for
40
12.
hours a week for 12
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
So a year of working for free,
For-
essentially. Well, you have to pay.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
gotcha.
Paid
Yes.
for curriculum. Yep.
Don't you love the medical field?
Yeah.
It's like-
And it was, they like encourage you to not work outside of that.
Right. Just
It's
immerse
like you have to
yourself into
focus.
it.
You have homework.
Just take
and-
out some loans. You'll be good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like-
So it's like, fantastic.
yes. Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, you have to pay your dues, right?
Yep.
But yeah, so then like getting into how I kind of started Triad too, I worked at Rhode Island Hospital for a little
Cool.
while, a little over a year through COVID. So that was like a whole experience in itself.
I bet.
Working the COVID ICU units, trying to tube feed people upside down. Not
Upside down?
Not this way, prone.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Were they lying prone for like the lungs essentially?
yep.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was one of their, funny enough, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but that was one of their like main therapies through COVID
Really?
with the vented patients, was it because it took the pressure off their lungs.
Wow.
So they would flip them for multiple hours throughout the day, which posed an issue from a nutrition standpoint because when you feed people that are vented, it has to be through a tube, right? They can't eat with their mouth. They're not conscious.
Sure.
So feeding people that were flipped upside down pretty much were challenging because you don't digest upside down pretty much.
Yeah.
So it was like, we had to come up with new protocols. Like, it was really an experience that I appreciated being a part of, and I learned a lot, but it was traumatic.
That's insane. Yeah, I had no idea about that, and I felt like I was staying like pretty on top of like what was going on with COVID, and I had no idea anything about that. I feel like most people have no idea anything about that.
No, and I think it was something that wasn't just like Rhode Island hospital based. I think it was kind of like a nationwide protocol that they started working on.
Well, we learned, I mean, very, very basics in PT school about the different positions that you can lay to help with your lungs.
Yep.
And just to help like better circulation. There's like different positions, so that makes sense, which is really interesting. Talk to me a little bit about the hospital version or the hospital setting, because I don't know a ton about that either. Like when I think of RD and nutrition, my mind always goes to the sports focused. But what is it like in the hospital?
Terrible.
Fair enough.
Which is why I got out of it. Like, it's I'm brutally honest.
That's fine. That's good.
I'm a Scorpio through and through.
There you go.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, it's bananas. It really is bananas because you do a lot of like food service stuff.
Sure.
Like even patients, like you would walk into the room and say who you are and like, hey, I'm from dietary. And they'd be like, oh, my lunch was terrible. They forgot my ketchup, like food service stuff, and be like, okay, like that's not my job.
Oh my God.
I can relay the message on, but that's not my job.
Sure.
So it was a lot of like fielding questions that weren't relevant. But a lot of it is coming from like a nutrition education.
Okay.
So you're, I don't know, the 60-year-old guy in there who came in for a diabetes complication that had to get his foot amputated because it wasn't managed properly.
Sure.
I have to now go in there with my packet of paper and teach you how to carb count for when you go home so we can check a box to say that we did it. And it's just not applicable. Like,
yeah. It's got to be tough too, because those people, I feel like as you know, there's so much like behavior, like willingness to change.
Yeah, and I have to teach you in 5 minutes.
And you're like, are you going to listen to anything?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
No, and it's like there's no consideration for like readiness of change or absorption of information or accessibility.
Right.
Like what if that person is on SNAP benefits and doesn't even have money to go buy fresh fruit or vegetables?
Sure, yeah.
Like it was so frustrating and very unfulfilling. Ugh. Like the only part of it that I really enjoyed, which is the only part that I kind of miss, is doing the nutrition support stuff. So tube feeds, TPN, feeding IV through people that can't nourish themselves on their own. Obviously, like that was fascinating to me.
Sure, yeah.
And very scientific, like lots of math involved, lots of problem solving involved. But that was the stuff that like I actually felt like I was making a difference.
Yeah.
Everything else, just
it's like this is going one ear and out the other. This is not helping this person.
Yeah. So
everyone's time is being wasted right now.
Literally. Yeah. And it was like the combination of that and I think some of like the COVID trauma, I'd like that's what brought me to doing private practice because I was just sitting in our basement office one day with like 0 windows, 0 fresh air.
Tough. Yeah.
Terrible. And I was just like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I truly hate this. I feel like I do not matter. I feel like I've always been a big thinker. Like I'm very motivated. I'm very like leader. I just knew that I could be doing more.
Totally.
And I didn't know how, and I didn't feel like I could. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you know what? Let me see. Let me see what else there is. Because I knew the clinical world was probably just going to be other jobs like that.
Yeah.
So I literally Googled, how do I start my own nutrition business?
Yeah.
Because it was kind of like at the peak of when social media kind of like blew up.
Sure.
And I saw a couple people starting to do like virtual private practice. Like, oh, this is like kind of cool. You get to like make your own schedule and see who you want to see. And it matters because they actually want to listen. They're coming to you out of their choice.
Right.
In their pocket. Like they're invested.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I I had zero business experience. I had no idea what I was doing. So I went to Dr. Google and said, how do I start doing this? And then I filed for my LLC, and that was almost 3 years ago now. That'll be February 1. Will be my 3-year anniversary of the business. So it was just like, I just felt like I needed more and I needed to do more.
That's so cool. That I think that segues really good into kind of like so the difference between what a client looks like when they work with you in the hospital versus what does it look like when the client works with you, like when they come see you for like private practice at Triad.
Yeah, by choice.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I think like we kind of talked about the hospital just being more like nutrition education focused, more. This is what you need to be doing. Like take it home with you and
Here's
figure
your
it out.
pamphlet.
Yep. Whereas in the business, it took me a while to develop obviously the skills and the curriculum that I teach now, but it's well-rounded. It's a full like holistic approach. It's tackling behavior change. It's sharing my knowledge of things from a very mindset full perspective, not this is your meal plan, go follow it, which is also what some private practice dietitians do. And that's just not, in my eyes, sustainable.
Sure.
Because you can ask anyone, like, how long have you ever figured out how long you can track or how long you can follow something on a piece of paper or your MyFitnessPal? Like, it's not. It's tough. When you're 85, you're not going to be doing that. So why are we doing that now?
Right.
Whereas it's teaching the skills and the knowledge underneath things. So, and I tell all of my clients this, like, my goal is to end up not having to work with you. Like, the end goal is at some point when you're ready, like, you'll be able to do this on your own.
Yeah.
And you have me in your back corner whenever you need to come back for questions or extra support or, hey, I'm pregnant now. Like, I need help with this.
Right.
Some other, like, big life event. But for the long term, it's habits, it's behavior change, it's understanding how and why to do things that help you achieve health and wellness long term.
Totally. Yeah, I like that a lot.
And the hospital was just like 0% of any of that.
But that's significantly better for you and the clients.
Yeah.
And I think that segues nicely into the next question, which is, so topic. You focus, or your one of your biggest clients is women, and especially women in athletics. So tell me a little bit, like, what are some of the struggles that like women in athletic has, and like how did you kind of get into that like niche, if you want to call it that?
Yeah. So figuring out like, okay, I have the business, I have the LLC, like I have the tools and the resources now. It's like figuring out, I can't just help everybody.
Yeah.
I wish I could, but it's figuring out, okay, you have to like niche down.
Yeah.
Pick a niche. So something that I am still very passionate about was the sports world, because I played soccer for a bajillion years. And that's where I really struggled. Even like, I don't think what people understand is like, it is just not talked about at all. And even at my low level, I played Division III, so it could have been a lot worse.
Sure.
But it was still like, no one talked to us about what we should or shouldn't be eating, or how to properly take a rest day, or injury prevention, or hydrating effectively, or like so many things that just like, no, let's just run you into the ground until you throw up and we'll call that successful.
We worked hard enough.
Just very, very, very toxic. And so through that, like even through high school too, like the all or nothing, the perfectionism, like it was just such a toxic environment that I was in year round and thought it was totally normal. And because everyone else in that arena is like, all right, like we're doing this too. So it doesn't seem abnormal until you take a step back and you're like, holy crap. I had like an eating disorder and body image issues, and I was like in a very terrible place for a very long time. And it's filling that gap that I really wanted to tackle, because when you're in athletics, like I said, you don't necessarily realize that it's an issue. And when you're transitioning out of athletics, when you're done with your career, whether it's by choice or not by choice, if it's an injury, again, no one talks about it.
Yeah.
It's, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing because that's the only thing I've known.
Sure.
Not,
sure.
well, how do I eat balanced? How do I eat for sustainability long term to reach my wellness goals? What are my wellness goals?
Sure.
Like, you don't know anything other than I'm going to keep drilling myself into the ground and hope it works.
Yeah. So a lot of the clients that you work with, you basically are able to help like reverse a lot of those bad habits or like stuff. Yeah, almost like unlearn some of the stuff they learned in the past. Yeah.
A lot of that like initial phase is a lot of like unlearning.
Sure.
Yeah. So I like to describe it as a knot. Like they have a really poorly done knot, like when you like really haphazardly like throw your shoelaces together.
Sure.
And you can just like pull a string and it pops undone.
Sure.
So we have to do that, and then we weave like a really nice like monkey knot.
Nice.
Of like good habits, good understanding. Like can't just pull a string and it comes falling down to the ground.
Right.
Like my most successful clients get to the point where they actually have to put effort in to go back to the ways that they were once living.
Sure.
And that's like a crazy realization. Like you would actually have to put effort in to not do this anymore. And that's when you know like, whoa, I've like reached some serious progress. Yeah. That it's like the good part, the healthy, sustainable part is becoming your first nature now and not the other way.
Sure. No, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Super satisfying.
Yeah. Significantly better.
Yes, for everybody.
Yeah. So I think we skipped over this, and I definitely want to touch on it because I guess it's something else that a lot of people don't realize what the big difference is between RD and nutritionist.
Yes. Yes, I get it a lot. Yes, so they're not the same thing.
Sure.
There's also no such thing as a nutritionalist. That's been another word I've heard.
Interesting. Okay.
Like we're just combining different words together now.
Okay.
Okay, so that doesn't exist. So yeah, nutritionist can also go by like nutrition coach, whatever. Couple different things that people call them. Can be anything from like a weekend course that you take online to like maybe a couple month course that you do on your own time. And there's a bunch of different companies that do that now, and it's just like not standardized. It's not very specific. But you get like a piece of paper that says you're certified nutrition, whatever. And
according to whatever company gives it to you. Gotcha.
Yeah, that you paid, right.
They're not like any overarching like organization that's like this is what a nutritionist is.
No.
It's just like if I start an LLC, I could create maybe a nutritionist course and then give out certifications. 100%. Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. So fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's also that it's more, even though like it sounds not enough, they're still technically allowed to practice like general nutrition practices, like general nutrition advice, like, hey, maybe don't drink 5 sodas a day, like very general advice. Right. They're not supposed to be teaching things like specific macros. They're not supposed to be prescribing. Like if I said, Matt, these are your macros based on your goals, your numbers, whatever, that's prescribing macronutrients.
Sure. Okay.
They're not supposed to do that. That's out of scope of practice because that's very individualized. That takes expertise to do.
And so that happens a lot.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So are there like loopholes or just is it not being policed?
Because there's no governing body.
Gotcha.
And there's like no way that anyone could ever keep up with that.
Right. Okay. So
it's the more like empowerment and knowledge that we can tell people about to like understand that themselves, to be like, oh, like my trainer probably shouldn't be telling me this because it's not right.
Sure.
And they don't have the background to do that.
Sure.
So other than that, the difference, like they don't have continuing education that they're supposed to adhere by.
Right.
Like we said, there's no governing body. There's no regulations.
Yep.
Nothing like that. Whereas dietitians, even though now we kind of have like dietitian nutritionist lumped together because that's a new like accredited name.
Okay.
Because people didn't understand what dietitian was.
Right.
So our governing body said like, well, let's call it dietitian nutritionist. So at least people start recognizing like, oh, there's another type of professional that can help.
Right.
Which is cool. But we get confused now.
Yeah.
So like I said, you have to do, it's now a minimum master's degree. That changed this year.
Gotcha.
But I'm grandfathered in.
Nice.
So I don't have to do it unless I want to.
Good. Yeah.
So now minimum master's, still the dietetic internship, still the board exam. We have to do 75 continuing ed credits every 5 years. We have a governing body. We have rules. We have scope of practice.
Right.
But we're the higher professional that's supposed to be tackling things like medical nutrition therapy,
Right.
like prescribed macros, recommended supplements, vitamins, minerals, dosages of things. Like we're the more medical side of nutrition.
Sure. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I think most people have no idea about.
Very
Yes.
very widely misunderstood. Yes.
Okay, so I want to get into a little bit of like the common, and I wrote some down, but obviously we can go off on tangents here as well. But some of the common
Many
nutrition
tangents.
questions that either I have or just in general that I hear a lot about. And I think some of them might not even have like super black and white answers, but just like, kind of talking points. Probably most of them.
Yes.
But all right. So first one is the whole debate on organic versus non-organic.
Mm-hmm. So you'll understand that a lot of my answers are like, well, it depends.
Yes, sure, which is fine.
Yeah, because it really does depend. Like, why do you want to do that?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Why do you think organic is best versus non-organic or inorganic? But it kind of comes down to like anything that we're putting on our body, kind of just understanding like where it's coming from, what's in it, just empowering yourself with the more knowledge, the better. But it's expensive.
Yep.
It's kind of out of reach for a lot of Americans, especially not just Americans, but like other countries too.
Sure.
That's not even a thing. And if you think about it too, like if you have a field of organic strawberries, their field of inorganic strawberries is right next door.
Sure.
And they're not stopping the air from
the airflow,
traveling
right
over there.
It's not a barrier.
No, but because these are from this field, they're considered organic and the other ones aren't.
Right.
So it's like you kind of have to do a little bit of like constructive thinking, like, is this worth $10 for a thing of strawberries? Probably not, because if you go home and wash them,
Sure.
the other ones are probably just as good.
Sure.
And it's not as sustainable to think like, okay, well, if I only eat organic, you're probably now cutting out some of your options.
Sure.
So now your intake might suffer because you're so hell-bent on
Only
everything
doing that.
has to be organic.
Totally.
So if someone's like really adamant about why maybe they have like an autoimmune disorder, they're a little bit more focused on like, okay, well, I don't want this in my body because it's causing an issue. And they don't feel trustworthy in their immune system, maybe, especially like even like oncology cancer patients too. Like that I can kind of understand.
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, stick to like the dirty dozen or the dirty 16 or whatever they call it, of like kind of a mandatory list of fruits and veggies that you probably should be doing organic because they're like the high risk. So it's more
I never
like,
heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more like berries. I think avocados are on there. Things that are a little bit more like susceptible to pesticides and stuff like that.
Okay.
Versus something like a cabbage that you're taking off that front layer anyways. So you're
Right.
eating the protected inside, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Whereas like a strawberry is out to the elements,
Sure.
essentially. So it's like understanding that, but making sure that it's something that you can do long term too. Like if you're adamant about it, then it has to be something that's sustainable too.
Right.
Not just, well, I can't afford this, now I'm going to stop next month. Like, you just wasted all that time and effort and money doing it
Right.
anyways.
Yeah. For what?
Yes.
Yeah. It's such an interesting topic because I mean, I haven't dug super deep into the research, but from what I've heard, there's not, I mean, and this could be completely biased, but there's not a ton of research saying like the inorganic stuff's that much different for you in the long term.
No.
At least there's nothing that was like definitive. But I could see some people saying like, oh, I don't want as much pesticides or fertilizers or that stuff in the food. But yeah, I just don't see enough evidence to like really make me buy all organic at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And even that, like, if you're going to put money towards something, then maybe, like, start doing stuff at home if you can.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
there's so many different solutions now. Like, even indoor, like, herb gardens that you can keep on your countertop. Like,
Right.
even if you're in an apartment in Providence and you don't have land.
Yeah.
There's still a couple things that you can do. But a really good point that I wanted to bring up, too, is if we're thinking about, well, I don't want the pesticides and the inorganic stuff in my system, in my body.
Yeah.
Why aren't we also looking at the other aspects of your life?
Sure.
The artificial fragrances in your perfume.
Okay. Yeah.
the artificial fragrances in your Yankee candles that you just got for Christmas.
Sure.
They're
inhaling them. Yep.
Yep. Has your house ever been tested for mold?
Sure.
It's like all of these other toxins, and they're called endocrine disruptors. So it's literally disrupting your endocrine system from properly working.
Sure.
So if we're not addressing those things too, then why are we so focused on food by itself?
Right. Almost getting hyper focused on one thing when like there might be other things that might even make a bigger impact anyway that are set on a similar scale.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
A water filter, like things that just like don't get looked at as closely because it's not a big fad thing. It's not part of the diet industry that makes billions of dollars every year on our fear of, well, I don't want pesticides in my food, so I must buy these things.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's
I haven't
just
heard
crazy.
that explanation before either, but that, I like that. We can move on to the next one. Let's go. So counting macros, we talked about a little bit already, but is there anything else you wanted to add on to that? Argument for, argument against? It depends.
yeah, really. It depends. Understanding like why you want to do that, how long you think that's sustainable. I think it has a purpose at some parts, but I think main message is like understanding that it's just a tool of information to have, not something that has to be you're contracted for the rest of your life to do. Sure.
Yeah, I like that.
But can also become very easily disordered too. So understanding like red flags when they pop up is really important.
Yeah. I won't drop their name, but there's someone who I know who was so dialed into the macro tracking. I don't know if it was disordered or just their personality, but they were even tracking like when they went to church, the Eucharist.
Oh my God. That's disordered.
Yep.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like what is that? 2 calories? Maybe it's like cardboard.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But like you said too, like maybe it's just their personality.
Right.
It's not though.
Yeah, right.
Like that is not normal.
It's too much. Yeah, it's too much.
But you get so like, you convince yourself that it's normal.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, that's
so
funny.
I can see, going way too down the rabbit hole, way too deep with it for sure.
Yep.
Next question we got anything. This probably goes into a similar answer as the organics, or maybe not. Anything to stay away from. I know the big, as far as foods or ingredients, I know the big things that you're always talked about is the high fructose corn syrup, the seed oils, the fake sugars like the aspartame. I don't know how to pronounce it, but is that
aspartame?
Is that how you pronounce it?
Aspartame?
Aspartame.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I see it all the time, but I've never heard it out loud. So I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yep, that one.
Yes.
Yeah. They are definitely like fad topics, very diet industry, like fear-based. I think kind of general rule of thumb is just the less the better, like the less ingredients, the better when we're looking at food labels. But that doesn't always work because if a banana had a food label, that ingredient list would also be quite long because it's made up of minerals and vitamins and all of these different things that people don't realize.
Right.
Because it doesn't have a label because obviously it's a banana.
Right.
But it's like evidence that, well, if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't be eating it. Like majority of people probably couldn't pronounce what's in a banana, technically, at like a molecular level.
Sure.
So it's like, you need to understand like where the thoughts are coming from. But in a general rule, the less ingredients from like a processed view is going to be a little bit better.
Sure.
As far as like completely eliminating certain ingredients, though, one, it's just not realistic with our food system. Unfortunately, it's not the greatest at fillers and stuff like that, sweeteners.
Yeah.
We'd have to move, which
okay, yeah.
I'm game for.
Right.
But it's just doing the best you can.
Yeah.
Like if the majority of your diet is coming from more whole foods, proteins, veggies, fruits, good stuff like that. If you have processed foods that make up the other 20% of your intake, it's not going to make or break anything. Same with those ingredients. Like if that's stuff that you have once in a while as part of your balanced diet, again, it's not going to make or break anything. We're going to be exposed to them one way or another in the food industry we have. So it's just like if you tried to completely cut out high fructose corn syrup, you'd basically be eating nuts. And like
it's
like
in everything.
A bird.
It's in everything.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like you said, unless you move, because places, I think like it's not as common, and I know there's a whole conspiracy rabbit hole behind this, which I'm sure you've heard about, the whole Monsanto piece of it. But like I think in places like Europe, they don't really have as much, or they don't use it as much, whether it's culturally, from a business point of view, for whatever reason.
Their system is just better.
Sure, okay.
It's like
plain and simple.
Yeah, it's like less monopolized.
Sure.
Less politics involved, I think. But yeah, Europe. I mean, even Canada to some extent is a little bit more progressive in terms of like not using as many artificial colors and flavors and stuff that's obviously healthier for us.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you're ready to move, let me know.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. We'll all take a trip.
Go to Italy.
Well, I joke around with my husband about it now. I'm like, we're going to come back and I'm not going to want to eat our food anymore. Like, it's just going to be so bad.
Yep. No, the food in Italy is very good. You'll have a great time. Yeah. Next question, we got water intake. So I know that the general rule of thumb is the 8 glasses a day. What any thoughts on that or any tips on that or?
Yeah, so I would say meet yourself where you're at. Like if you're someone who maybe only has 1 glass of water a day, for you to be like, yeah, I'm going to go for 8. Again, not realistic. Like set realistic goals, baby steps. Improvement is still improvement, even if it takes you a little while to get to where you want to go. Sure. But again, at least it's behavior change. At least it's sustainable. Yeah. Whereas you trying to eat or drink 8 from 1 is not really sustainable. You probably won't do it, and then you're shamed and guilted, and then you won't do it again. Right.
You're like, I'll give up. I won't even think about this anymore.
So like the rabbit hole of negative reinforcement. Yep. Avoiding that. Some general helpful tips though, like we both have I call them our emotional support water bottles.
Yes.
They come with us. Oh, it's over there. They come with us everywhere. Keeping it full, keeping something that's like a manageable volume. Like I'm not going to be carrying around a gallon because that's just not comfortable for me to carry around. So find a size that's probably bigger than 8. So at least you're more prepared throughout the day. Keeping it full, like not letting it sit empty for a long period of time. And even like as stupid as it sounds, and I tell my clients this all the time, like if you just have something that's a screw off top, sometimes that's enough of a barrier for your brain to be like, I'll do it less often. Sure. Versus like, hey, I keep this on my desk open with my straw top. Yeah. It's more likely that I'm going to grab it and take a couple sips here and there because it's accessible. Right. Because it's less of a stupid barrier for my brain than to turn it off or take it off and then sip.
I'll show mine too.
Now we're comparing.
We got the stickers. I like this one because it's got the chug tap, so I could just like. I don't have to spill it all over myself. Yeah. Because without that, if that big...
The big opening.
Oh, man. It would... If I tried to, like, chug it quick, like, it'd be...
Everywhere.
All over. Which I questioned about that because I know you talked about chugging. And I hadn't heard this before, so I'm interested about it. It's better to just go consistently throughout the day versus, like, chugging large amounts at a time. Yeah, because if you think about it from an anatomical perspective, like, our bladder is also a muscle. Sure. Right? It's only one size. Yeah. We all have one size. Like, you can't work on making it bigger or smaller. Sure. It's only going to hold so much at one time. It can only work so hard at one time, even at, like, max efficiency. So if you're chugging throughout the day and going, like, long periods without anything and then chugging a bunch all at once, it's only going to have the ability, your kidneys too, to process, actually absorb, hold, and then excrete out what you're not using in your body. If you're chugging all day long and going long periods without it, the likelihood that you're actually absorbing 100% of that fluid intake is probably not a lot. Gotcha. Versus like kind of general rule of thumb is like 4. So 4 like in, swallow. Like gulps.
Yep. Or like sips. Yeah. Okay. Usually around 4 is kind of like a good number. Because then that way you're giving your body time to actually process and absorb it and you're not just going to go pee it out 2 minutes later. Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. Consistent intake, better for hydration, essentially. Yeah, just like food, too. And less. Yeah, fair enough. Literally, same principles apply. Yes, that's good. Yes. It's just instead of the bladder, it's the stomach. Yep. Yeah. I think, too, another helpful tip, and then I know we can move on to the next question. I think a lot of people don't realize that there's other variables included with fluid intake, too, like things like decaf tea and... helpful fluids like electrolytes, kombucha, stuff like that also counts as your fluid intake. It doesn't just have to be water. Totally. So kind of mixing and plugging along if you're like adverse to just water, which I get bored of it sometimes too. So switching stuff up, like even seltzer too, like that counts as your fluid intake, right? Totally. But things like soups, broths, certain water intake also coming from fruits and veggies. Obviously, we know watermelon has a lot of water content. So, like, yes, that counts as part of your fluid intake.
Awesome.
Same with athletes. Like, they have higher water needs because you're also excreting and sweating out a lot of your fluids and electrolytes, so they need more.
Right.
Same with pregnancy and breastfeeding women. They also need more because their volume is bigger.
Totally. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Good. So I'm looking at our general topics here. I'm gonna start skipping around a little bit, just so I don't keep you over too much. We're at the top of the hour now. We're at 12. I just want to make sure I'm respectful of your time. We said 12, like 10, 12, 15? Or
Yeah, that's fine.
Is good? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we're good.
All right, so supplements. So this is one I definitely want to talk about. Which ones to take, which ones to not bother with, and one in particular I'm not bothered with I want to dive into. But in general, what are your thoughts on supplements, and then like what's the most important ones?
Yeah, so I think food first.
Yes.
That's always my main message. Food first, working on actually like piecing improvement into your dietary intake first. And then go to supplements. Like, that's why they're called supplements. They're not called replacements.
Yes.
They're called supplements because they supplement a normal balanced diet. But if you're in a place where you need more than that, right? Like actual vitamin deficiency, obviously you're going to need to take a supplement because you can't get enough from your intake. So like us in New England, vitamin D in the wintertime is like a must because we don't get enough of it. You can't physically eat enough with the lack of sunlight that we get from being not outside, obviously. Typically, Americans as well with our diet and our food system, we're also pretty consistently deficient in certain omegas. So fatty acids, specifically 3 and 6. On average, most Americans are pretty deficient in that unless you're having salmon and mackerel like every day of your life, which we're not.
Most people aren't.
Yeah. So we actually get a hefty amount of omega-9, which is actually pro-inflammatory. So
Gotcha.
the more 3 and 6 that we can get kind of balance out 9.
Nice.
So having a nice solid, like actual backed fish oil supplement that's not just like a random one you pulled off the shelf.
Right.
So checking for things, this goes with any supplement, checking for things like USP certifications, NSF, which is sports.
Yep.
So if you're playing or thinking about playing collegiate sports, all your supplements have to be either NSF or certified sport labeled.
Gotcha. More regimented testing.
Yeah, because if not, you could pop off on your drug test for having
Tainted supplement.
A certain supplement, which you had no idea would trigger.
And USP is?
That's not sports specific. That's like, I forget. It's like
something else.
It's
to, like,
just more generalized. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So that's good to know because I know the big argument I get, like, not against supplements, but at supplements, I guess you could say, is they're not regulated by the FDA. So like, technically, they could put whatever they want in there until they get caught, essentially.
Yeah. Yep. Which is like a big red flag. So if you look for something like the USP or even something like a third-party test, just to make sure it's like someone is vetting it and it's not just like an internal, like, yeah, this is our sponsor and they said we can do it. So like, obviously that's shady.
We think it's good because we said so.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, just be smart. Be a smart consumer.
Sure.
That goes for anything. So just read labels. Be aware. But yeah, so omegas, fish oils, glutamine, especially if you're an active individual, it's an amino acid. L-glutamine is really helpful for like muscle synthesis, recovery, muscle growth, all of that good stuff. And it's like relatively middle ground as far as cost goes.
Cool.
So it won't break the bank with anything. And then you kind of have like your go-tos like protein powders, creatine, which if you're doing creatine, make sure it's creatine monohydrate because that's the only form that actually is effective.
Sure.
Multivitamins. I mean, a daily multi is always kind of good just to cover all the bases, but all those things can also be achieved from a diet. So again, understanding like where your strengths lie
Totally.
and what gaps you need to actually fill.
One quick question on supplements that I've been starting to hear a little bit about recently is certain supplements, like I think vitamin D or there's certain ones out there that don't seem to, or like the quality of the brand, people have said like a higher quality brand may absorb better versus like a lower quality brand. I don't know if you've heard anything on like that. Like, don't buy the cheapest, maybe not the most expensive, maybe like a middle of the road type brand.
So in theory, that makes sense.
Sure.
But if, again, they're not being regulated, there's no price regulation either.
Right.
So it's not, I tell my clients this too, like if you compare it to clothes,
Sure.
like you can almost bet that like the higher clothes cost, they're going to be higher quality. Like
Right.
that makes sense in our brains.
Yeah.
Supplements are not that way.
Sure.
Like if you're in the aisle, you're like, oh, I'm going to buy this one because it's $20 more. It must be higher quality. That's not true because there's no regulation on pricing or ingredients or quality
Yeah.
testing or anything.
Right.
So it's
right.
just, and a lot of the companies have monopolies over the system. So
Yeah.
their prices are going to be different. That doesn't mean they're better or worse.
Right. Right.
So it's, I think, again, it depends, but like read the label, read the ingredients, make sure it has what it's supposed to have.
Okay.
Something like turmeric. If you're taking a turmeric example and it doesn't have curcumin or black pepper in it, not effective.
Gotcha.
Again, a lot of people don't know that, but turmeric is not bioavailable naturally from our bodies. Black pepper opens that gate.
Sure.
Or curcumin, which is the compound in black pepper. So if you have a turmeric supplement that doesn't have that in the ingredient list, you're basically not doing anything.
Right.
So
Right.
like that would take a 5-second Google search to understand.
Yeah.
But like educate yourself
Totally.
or ask a professional.
Yes. Just to quickly review ones to not bother with, and we can just list these off. But the one I want to talk about a little bit was the greens powders, and for the reason that almost every YouTuber and influencer in the fitness world
Yeah.
is sponsored by Athletic Greens. It seems
Yeah.
like these days, and people have asked me about it, and I'm like, I mean, from what I've heard, I think you probably just save your money and not get it. Like,
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah. They're just making money.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
making a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
Use the money to buy fruits and vegetables.
yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, yeah.
And if it's like a convenience thing or like
Sure.
an ease of routine, you can figure it out.
Sure.
Like you can juice at home very easily. You can make smoothies at home in like 2 seconds flat.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like, it's silly.
Yeah.
It's really silly.
And I've heard the argument too from people who are kind of like the greens powders seem like kind of weird. Like you're probably getting something a very similar benefit from a multivitamin anyway. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. And you're, again, like yes, they can tell you what their ingredient list is, but you're not sure where it's being sourced from.
Right, right.
You don't know if it's third-party tested. You don't know if they've even studied the effectiveness of their actual claims.
Yep.
And you're losing, like, anything from because I've seen it with, like, fruit, too. Like, they have the reds powders.
Yes.
Or, like, the blues powders,
Yep.
like, any color that you're missing. One, just, like, eat that color more. But you're getting, you're not getting any of, like, the fiber and the actual, like, bulk nutrients from it because it's in powder form.
Right. Yeah, that's I think I just blew any possibility of a AG1 or greens powder sponsorship down the road, but that's okay. All right.
We're here for normal fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
They can sponsor us.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I think so. We had a couple other questions just about exercise, movement, sleep. We kind of talked about some of this stuff a little bit already, and then I think some stuff on stress management might be cool to talk about.
Sounds like we need a part 2.
Yeah, I think we might. I think we might need a part 2. Let's finish with one just topic on stress management, and then I'll let you get out of here because I know you got stuff to do on your day. But yeah, so let's talk about that. So, just in general, this is something that I've been kind of fascinated with recently, and you had some good answers here. So how is stress impacting on like weight loss, weight gain?
Yeah. It's going to hinder pretty much everything.
Yeah.
If we're in a pro-inflammatory state, more inflammation in our body, that's definitely not desirable. Your systems are slower, your metabolism kind of slows down. You get things like brain fog, easy fatigue, loss of motivation, like things that don't make you feel good. Mm-hmm. And where in that state, you're way less likely to focus on your balanced habits, which you need to work on to reach those goals, whether it be weight loss, weight gain, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. It's like you said, it's a lot coming from like stress management, though, not only from improving things like our water and our food and our sleep and everything, that's all well and good. But if you're not addressing the actual root cause of your stress, and I'm not a psychiatrist by any means, but a lot of what I do talk to my clients about is strategies that help from a mindset perspective of like not getting stuck in comparison mode, not getting stuck in that all or nothing approach, or understanding that like you're not responsible for your failures 100% of the time. Guilt, shame, like all of that stuff are things that we can talk about because they're applicable to all of those habits.
Totally.
But when we're in that pro-inflamed state and we're not doing anything to address it other than like, well, I'm on anxiety medication, so that must be taking care of it. It's not actually addressing the root cause.
Right.
So you're slapping a Band-Aid on a leaky pipe that may or may not hold for a little while, but if you're not addressing the leak itself, it's never going to fully heal.
Right.
And then it really is crazy, like, especially from a body image perspective, the amount of times I've seen clients, like, I've been trying to lose weight, or even I've been trying to gain weight. I've been trying to reach these goals, and I haven't for years, and I've tried all the things, and I'm doing everything you're saying I'm doing. Like, if you're not addressing your relationship with your body and healing that, and you're sitting and feeling like you hate it every second of every day, you're not going to reach your goals.
Right.
Because you're stuck in a state of constant fight or flight with your body, with your image, with your mindset, your thoughts. It's hindering all of the progress that you could be making. But again, if you don't understand the root cause of it, do some deep diving and work on it. It's not going to get better.
That's a great point, and it's something that I hadn't really heard, because you typically, and what I was kind of expecting from this question was like, oh yeah, meditation, journaling, which obviously that stuff's good, but like I think a key point which you mentioned, which I think a lot of people don't talk about, is trying to figure out where the stress is coming from and address it.
Yeah.
It's like
yeah. I mean, and that's just like, that's something that positive domino effects
in
all aspects of our life. Like, it's not just going to help you reach your goals. It's going to help heal a lot of other things in your life. It's hard work though. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy and that we should all just like, well, work on it. Like, you'll do fantastic. It's really freaking hard work, but it's so worth it. It is so worth it in the end. And it's not something that you have to do on your own either. Like,
sure.
Like, if you have to reach out, you have to reach out. And it's not, that's honestly one of like the hardest steps that I see from my clients, is taking that first step and saying like, you know what, I actually do need help. I would like to work with you on it. Because they think that it's admitting failure.
Sure.
And it's not. It's just understanding that like you don't have to be responsible for this because you're not an expert.
Right.
Like, I think that's what's misconstrued about food and nutrition, is that everybody thinks that it's their responsibility and that they're an expert in it because everybody has to eat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, accountants get chosen very easily because people are like, I don't know anything about finances. I need help.
Yeah.
Because they don't hold that responsibility. But because we all have to eat to stay alive, we hold that responsibility.
Right.
But you're not the expert.
Right.
Get that responsibility off.
Yeah.
And give it to an actual professional, whether it's me or someone else. I don't care. But take the responsibility off yourself. And know that it's not failing, but the more that you feel like you're failing, or that you're not doing a good job, or that you've tried everything and it hasn't worked, the more likely it is that you're going to go into that next thing with that mindset still, unless you're addressing the root cause of it.
Totally. I like that. Well said.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll start to wrap up here. Just a couple quick wrap up points here. So anything in store for the future, anything you want to plug, which obviously the business, and then the favorite quote. And the way I talk about this is that, so you're in Smithfield, so
Situate.
Situate. Is that near 29? Is it not 290? Is it 290? What's the major highway?
Like 295?
295, yeah. Is that right near you? Situate?
Kinda. It's right near Smithfield. You'd have to go through Smithfield to get to Situate. We're a little bit more like northwest.
Okay.
But I do everything virtually, so you can be anywhere in the country and you can work with me. So
for this, the way I portray this question is like the highway that's near you, you get the billboard there. So let's use 95. It makes it easier. So Highway 95, you get the billboard. I always say it's Rob Levine's billboard.
Oh my
Shout out
God.
Rob Levine. So you get his billboard for the day.
Nice.
And you can put whatever you want on it. Usually it's a favorite quote, mantra, or just something you want to say to your community.
One of my favorite things that I use myself actually is that you've done harder things.
Nice.
Everybody, no matter what place in life, what age, whatever, you've definitely done something harder than what you're experiencing right now, whatever that may be. Lean on that.
Yeah.
Like I really need to put this on a shirt, but like make self-recognition your superpower.
Yeah.
Like understand that you've done harder things before and you've made it through it. And you're a hell of a lot stronger in many different ways because of that. Use that experience, use that as your strength, but you also have to self-recognize that, right? Like you have to be able to look at yourself and be like, you know what? I did that and it felt really freaking good. I can do this too.
Totally.
But you're not going to feel that way if you're receiving all the outward reinforcement, but you're not giving it to yourself. It's not as effective. That's like gold right there. Making self-recognition your superpower.
Cool. I like it. And then anything coming up, like anything you're excited about, anything you want to plug?
I'm just ready for the growth this year.
Yeah.
I'm super open for growth. I've said a couple times on social media that last year kind of felt like an adapting year because there was a lot of factors with like a really crappy situation with us moving in the house and all of that stuff. Like there was just a lot to adapt through.
Sure.
And I definitely became a better version of myself for that. But this year I'm ready to like live in complete alignment and grow the way I want to grow, work with the people that I'm ready to work with. So if you're out there and any of this resonated with you, current, former female athletes, I don't just work with female athletes either. I also work with customized programs for anyone outside of that just like, hey, I really want to work with you specifically because you vibed. Totally cool too.
Awesome.
Yeah. Follow me on socials.
Cool. So we got on Instagram, Colby Chef, dietitian trainer. And then Triad Performance, Triad's PERF Nutrition.com.
Yep. Yeah. So the Instagram is the business page.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. So but if you're looking for the website, that's Triad Perf, like Performance Nutrition.com.
Beautiful. All right. Cool. Probably wrap up with that. Anything else you want to add in? All right, awesome. Yeah, we'll have to do part 2 because we got a lot more topics that we didn't get to, which is awesome. And I think we knew that going into it, but cool. All right, so Rody Strength signing off.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.